Welcome, Phyllis.
How are you?
I am glad to see you here, and I am doing good. And let me just state that today is August the 11th, 2021, and it's another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And I call it Ascension with A Course in Miracles because we are expanding. Ascension is not just up, it's out. It's an expansion. It's like a spiral. It keeps going and going and going and going. So we're allowing ourselves to expand into more of the truth of who we are. And it feels like an ascension because in some ways, our frequency, well, not in some ways, in all ways, our frequency is increasing. It's getting higher. It's getting more fine-tuned. It's getting clearer. So thank you for joining me. I'm Laina Orlando, and I am super, super excited to have the conversation that we're going to have today because we have to understand cause and effect. And we are in a section of the course where we are going to zero in on cause and effect in a very, very simple way, even though there is a lot to cause and effect. But what we're going to focus on today is like a simple part of it. But thank you all so much for being here, and welcome the rest of you joining. So exciting to see you here. All right, so let's go ahead and start by, let me hear from you. Since our last conversation, since our last class, is there anything that has become clearer for you? Anything that you have a lingering question about maybe that you want to go ahead and bring up now? Let's talk about that. And then we are going to focus on, these are 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs in the course that really go together. So I want to make sure that we focus on completing those 4 paragraphs. Although normally we don't do more than maybe 1 paragraph, sometimes 1 sentence, right? Kat, you've been in plenty of those classes where we never got past 1 sentence and we spent 2 hours on them. It's there's just so much richness in the course that it's really easy to just stay there and take in what it says. All right, but anybody want to share anything? Any clarity that you've gained since last time, or any anything you want to share? And if not, we will just jump right on in. Hello, Miss Lorelei and John and Angela, Dondra. Phyllis, why don't you, since you are joining us today, why don't you share with us what has you want to join us? I know you and I had a little conversation about the Course in Miracles the other day. You're a friend of Lorelei's, but what inspired you to join us? And then we'll go to Dr. Vern.
Well, it's kind of what we mentioned the other day, and Lorelei and I've had a lot of conversations. I'm really just I'm on a spiritual journey. I grew up in, as you can tell, I'm Southern. I grew up in the South. I grew up in a small town and was raised in the Southern Baptist Church. And it really scared me. And I really shied away from anything to do with that part of my life for quite some time. And I've really wanted to get back to that. I've had some events, especially late last year, lost my mother. She was 97. She was ready to go. And she was always so connected to her faith. And I saw her go through, different journeys in her life, but she always stayed rock solid. And I'm trying to understand what that looks like for me. I'm not really interested in the path I was on as a small child. There's definitely an influence to that. There's the parts of that I'll always carry with me, but there's parts of that I want to redesign. And I really want to understand how to navigate, to use that to navigate what's going on in our country, our world right now. COVID, the division. I had a conversation with a coworker, actually someone who works for me, a few minutes ago, and I found myself in a defensive mode, and that's not where I want to be, especially as a an owner of an organization. I'm an operations manager. That's not where I need to be. So that's part of why I'm here, and very excited to be here.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. And I had, such a lovely conversation with you. Thoroughly enjoyed that, especially your such a sincere desire to cultivate a relationship with the creator, God source of your own understanding.
Right.
Not the one that religion has imposed upon us.
Right.
And that is at the heart of the spiritual journey. Is we're all traveling like from that outer circle in towards the center, and we're all going to converge in the same place. And that is to come to know the God of our understanding.
Right.
And once we connect with the God of our understanding, that is exactly where we will discover how we're all the same. And that's the place where we discover love, where we discover compassion, kindness, so that we can operate in this world in gentleness, in compassion and kindness, but also in firmness and sovereignty of who we are. And I'm really excited that you're here. Thank you so much. And thanks, Lorelei, for recommending that Phyllis reach out to me, because we had a lovely conversation. So very sweet. All right, Dr. Vern, yes. And I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody so we have no background noise. So Dr. Vern, give me a second to mute everybody and then unmute yourself. Let's see.
Okay.
There we go.
All right, great. Well, all that I really enjoyed last night. Those of you that didn't make it, man, did you miss a great evening? We used up every single minute of it.
We did.
I don't think a minute went by that it wasn't on we didn't even take a break, which I thought was interesting. For 2.5 hours, just went straight. The interaction was fantastic, as usual. Laina, had her facilitator hat on, and at the same time kept it flowing, kept it open, kept it interesting. And I left there really with some good insights. I met I think I met 3 new people that I had not seen before. So those of you that didn't make it, that was recorded, right, Laina, or your presentation part? Or?
My phone ended up dying, so it cut off. I need to make sure I have a full battery, because
or just get an extension. That's what I used to do. I had an extension to the camera so I could go as long as I wanted to.
Yes. The only thing is I put a microphone to get a crisp sound, and the microphone attaches. So I've got to find an adapter that allows me to plug 2 things in, a microphone and a cord.
You need a Y cord. Yeah. Something like that. But,
yes.
No, it was,
but thanks for coming.
Yeah, it was a great evening. Look forward to the next one's coming up. Those of you that didn't make it, I really highly recommend that you come and spend, because having the live time together, it's totally different. I'm not going to say it's better than, because I've gotten a lot of insight over the last many months as we've gotten together using Zoom. But to be able to see each other and see the interaction at that level was very, very powerful.
And it's a different format. So
it's totally different. So it was like, because I was concerned. We do the same thing we do on the Wednesday Zoom, and it wasn't like that at all. I didn't find it to be like that at all. And then the way we talked about the formatting we're going to use moving forward, sharing what we learned since the last time we were together. I mean, a little bit of a structure, but I think that's going to be, to me, I'm looking forward as a practical place that I can go and I can get insight around how to address challenges I'm dealing with, but using the course as a guide. In other words, here's my challenge, here's what I'm dealing with. What resource in the course can I go to that I can work with to help me resolve the challenge that I'm dealing with? So I see it as practical spirituality, which I really enjoy. I really love that. And I just want to thank you again for doing that.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming.
I also look forward to your the big program that's coming up, and is that in September?
Yes, and it's a big program on one topic, and it's focusing on the ego. Wow, breaking down the ego, how the ego operates, how it shows up in our lives. If we don't understand that part of us, we don't know what we're transcending. We don't know what we are. We don't understand the blocks to the awareness of the presence of the God self.
I think that would be a great place to invite friends or somebody new in particular to get a taste of that, because especially when it's focused like that, it's there. And the new surroundings, the space was just fantastic. It's beautiful, it's calming, it's relaxing. Bring a cushion
for your tushy.
Because I mean, it's really great. And I'm really looking forward to it. I've got already booked out my schedule, and I highly recommend that you guys do the same thing so that you don't have to make choices on where to go. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yes, my friend that owns the nutrition center, Smart Nutrition and Wellness, they don't do a whole lot of classes there. So the chairs are plastic folding chairs. So you've got to bring a cushion. Definitely. That's a good thing to highlight. And this takes place in Roswell. But yes, last night was the first time. So I wanted to know who was going to show up. I didn't know who would be there. I knew a few of you who had responded and said you would show up, but I wanted to get a feel for the group and what was wanted, because I want to make sure that we use the course, as Vern was saying, as a platform for the practical aspect of what this is all about. And we've got to get really, really clear about all of the amazing tools that the course offers us. And they're really so simple. And at least I make them super simple to understand, which is what makes them easier to apply. Latanya, you're asking the exact dates in September. Let me grab my calendar. I'll be right back.
And Laina, are you going to set a way for us to register in advance so you know how many people are coming?
Yes, I have some web people working on updating my events page on my website.
Okay.
And they are going to be working on that, I suspect, by the end of this week for sure. So in my next email, if you're not receiving my newsletters, make sure you give me your email address. Type it in the chat and I'll be able to grab it from there. But the Tuesday evenings that we're going to be doing live from 7 to 9:30, these are going to be the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. And this takes place in Roswell, so relatively central for the majority of you that I know where you live. Then the Ego Workshop is going to be a two-part thing. The one you really want to bring anybody who is new to get a taste about what this is about is going to be on a Thursday evening, September the 9th from 7 to 9:30. And I'm calling that Ego Basics with A Course in Miracles. That's where we're just going to go into exactly what the ego is and a couple of examples so people can leave knowing a little bit about what the ego is. However, the full workshop, that's going to be on a Saturday, September the 10th from 10 to 5. That everybody is going to be invited to bring a sack lunch because I like to work through our lunches. So you bring your sack lunch and we can still have conversations during lunch and keep it going, keep it productive. And that is September the 25th. That one I'm calling an in-depth exploration of the human ego. Now, in one day, I can promise you, you are going to really get clear about what the ego is, how it shows up in your personal life, and the ways that it has sabotaged you, and what you have to do to transcend it. And once you understand the formula, it's a matter of applying it over and over and over again, because the ego is a repetitive dysfunction inside of us. And you have to repetitively correct it. But once you correct it, it's like it dissolves. That aspect of you dissolves because it doesn't have any power when you're not using it. And the practice is to learn how to override it so that it is not operating automatically. So, but it requires a lot of practice. And that's just the way that the ego functions, because we have let it become our master repetitively over thousands of years. We've all agreed that that is what is true. And we have to override that, because we all got trained to believe the ego through the repetition of the training that we received in church, in school, from the government, at work. It's everything is so repetitive that it ingrains an identity that overlays a false identity over our real identity, our true identity, the essence of who we are, which is, well, how God created us. And more importantly, and this is something that we all have to get comfortable with, not so much how God created us, but how God is inside of us, which is how we create. So we've got to learn to connect with God and accept that part of us that is exactly like God is. Now, not one of us is all that God is, but every one of us is all made of God. There is no way. So if you were to take this board, and let's say this board is what God is, let's just pretend that this is God. Every one of us is made of God. Every single one of us is an aspect of God. Not one of us is all that God is, but each of us is made all completely of God. And the ego is this little cover that we have around us that then we circle in and cover up until we become so tiny that we can barely find any tiny little bit of God inside of us, because it gets so distorted. Let me go grab my little cap. So thank you so much for that, Vern, that opportunity to share about those classes. When exactly is the September event? So the introduction is Thursday, September 9th. And that is 7 to 9:30, Ego Basics. And the actual workshop is September 25th, 10 to 5. That's the in-depth exploration of the ego. If anybody wants to type that in the chat, I would appreciate it. I don't have it where I can copy and paste really quickly. All right, so let's jump in to the continuation. We are inside of the text for A Course in Miracles. We are in chapter 21, Reason and Perception. Everything that we create in this physical world is because of the power of perception. We perceive something and we manifest it. And we have to take responsibility for what we are perceiving as what is out there. And we perceive it, it comes from in here, because this is a process of cause and effect. So this section in chapter 21 is section number 2, called the responsibility for sight. And I'm just going to read the little paragraph that we have been going through so many times today, or in this series. It's short, but it is powerful, and we all really should commit it to memory. I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience, and I decide upon the goal I would achieve. Always, every one of us is the one always creating and always responsible, not only for what we've created, but for our response to what we've created. And everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for and receive as I have asked. This is what lets us know how powerful we are. Nothing has happened to us that is not by choice. Nothing. And I know for a lot of people, that's like, I didn't choose to have cancer. I didn't choose to have my child die. I didn't choose to be born with missing a leg. I didn't choose these things. But if you understand what the Course is attempting to say, we have to make peace with how powerful we are, and that everything has been created, because until we accept that we created what we don't like, we cannot reclaim the power of creation to then shift it to create only what we want. And some of you who are in the relationship class, we just talked about this last week or this week. We have got to get clear about what it is that we want. The Course tells us if we don't know exactly what we want, we are always going to operate inside of the what we don't want. We're going to operate inside of that everything is happening and we have no power over it. And that is one of the important things that returns us to our power, is the acknowledgement of the acceptance that what is unwanted was created by us, not to make us feel like, oh my God, I'm so stupid that I created something so horrible, but rather so that we can embrace our creativity. What? I created a missing leg. I created cancer, which Lorelei is modeling for us so beautifully, how she's navigating this journey. Oh, I created that. Why would I create that? What lessons would God have me learn? Which is right out of the Course in Miracles. Everything is a lesson God would have us learn. So what do I need to learn? I'll tell you, the number one lesson that we all have to learn is how to love what is. Because in the loving what is, we activate the love of God. God loves everything that we've done, all the insanity that we have created, that we have made of this planet. God still loves us no matter what, because it's the love of an unconditional Father, even though we've been conditioned into believing that God is a fickle Father, like a human father that loves you depending on the whim that it's at. If it has a good day at work, it loves you. If it has a bad day at work, it's going to come home and beat you up. God is not like that. So there's a lot of correction of our perception of God and an appropriate placement of where God is. And when you understand where God is, then you can begin to really more clearly understand why you're so powerful. And where does the ego come into this? It's what blocks our awareness of that knowledge. That's why we have to understand the way the ego operates, what it does, why it does it, and why we have to learn how to transcend it. And when I say transcend it, there's a lot of stories, and I bought into all of this in the beginning. It's just part of the journey that we're going to kill the ego, that the ego is it's death to the ego, all kinds of things. And there's no such thing as killing your ego. You don't have to kill your ego. Your ego is nothing but a thought. You stop thinking it, there's no ego. That's it. When you stop thinking things that are not true, there is no ego. So you don't have to get rid of it. A long time ago, when there was less understanding of the simplicity of understanding the way the mind works, when you get to the simplicity that the Course is attempting to take all of us to, then it's simply a stop using what doesn't work for you. That's it. We don't have to kill a utensil in the kitchen we're not using, and we just don't use it anymore. And it's almost like it disappears. It doesn't even show up in your experience. And it's the same thing with the ego. You stop using it and it has zero power over you. So accepting that responsibility is key. So let's read paragraph 10. We're going to do 10, 11, 12, and 13. And the reading is going to go pretty quickly because there's a lot packed in here, but the paragraphs lend themselves for a quick read through the whole paragraph and then bringing it into a simple understanding. So paragraph 10. When vision is denied, and that means vision, you're not seeing with the eyes of God, you're seeing with the eyes of ego. When you deny your ability to see how God sees, confusion of cause and effect become inevitable. The purpose now becomes to keep obscure the cause of the effect and make effect appear to be cause. Let me erase this. And let's do a quick little drawing of what this means. All right, we're going to put cause here and effect over here. So this is the effect and this is the cause. Let me read this again. When vision is denied, when you don't accept that you are seeing, I'm going to put God here, you are seeing with the eyes of God. You are the one who, with your vision, and it's not vision from your eyes, with your desire from the heart, manifest the effect. The world that you see is the creation because we chose to incarnate, we chose to come into the planet, and we chose to see a world that before incarnation, we already had an idea of what it's like. And we knew we were going to come in, have parents, live on a planet of solidity. We're going to live in a planet that has governments, that has illnesses, that has all of these things. So there's a choice to come in and enter through the portal of knowing what the effect is going to be. We already know that. So back to this, the purpose now becomes to keep obscure when you don't look at it with the real vision, to keep obscure the cause of the effect and make effect appear as cause. So what is the effect in the world? Over here, we have we have the idea of, you make money at work. You've got the government, you've got the medical system, you've got partners that supposedly are, will complete you. Kind of wonky head on that partner. All the things that you think you need to have, the big house, the diamond ring, when you get married, so you can feel like you're special, like you're, somebody that is loved. So we have been trained that we're born and all of that is out there, all of that is real, and we need to go get it to be happy. So we get trained from the moment we're born that we are using our imagination, imagining everything. We little by little get trained into forgetting the truth of who we are. Our attention, our focus shifts from being here, seated in the seat of the soul. We create all of these barriers, all of these obstacles. We darken our vision. And then we think we live out here in the periphery, chasing all of these things, which means we leave our center and we become chasers of the stuff that's moving, that's shiny outside of us. And all of it is like a carrot on a stick. You catch it and you're never happy. You catch the partner, you catch the job, and there's always something else that you're trying to look for because it just doesn't seem to satisfy, because the ego makes sure that we're never satisfied. It's part of the obscuring that the effect has no power over you. So it obscures it by making you think that it has power, and you got to keep chasing it. So it's a correction in the mind. And again, we'll talk about this in the ego workshop. So this seeming independence of effect enables it to be regarded as standing by itself and capable of serving as a cause of the events and feelings its makers thinks it causes. Earlier, in a previous paragraph, earlier we spoke of your desire to create your own creator and be the father and not son to him. This is the same desire. The son is the effect whose cause he would deny. And so he seems to be the cause producing real effects. Nothing can have effects without a cause, and so confuse it. And to confuse the two is merely to fail to understand them both. Mouthful to say something really simple. God created us. God, the infinite creator, all that is, enters in one point of awareness. You, me, Phyllis, Lorelei, the Dalai Lama, Hitler. God enters in every single one of us, has God in it, has the vision of God in it, and the power of God to create, to manifest. We enter into the world and we then think, oh, mom and dad, these people out here made us. So we forget the cause, which is God, and we begin to look at the effect. The humans that I chose to come and incarnate and have an experience with, the humans are the cause of me. We're all told from the time that we're itty bitty that we are mom and dad's children. The stork brought us. It doesn't matter the story that we use, but the story is that we show up because of these two people. Now, that is true to a certain extent, but it's not the whole truth. The whole truth is that God uses those two beings as the portal of entry. And we have to put that in perspective. The father and the mother Not one single father and mother can create a child. Nobody, not even a scientist, can create a child. A child is the product of, it truly should be the product of love. It's the product of union, of bringing into union the energies of masculine and feminine for the creation of another being that then expresses itself as masculine or feminine and keeps the game going. But when we begin to think that the effect, which our mom and dad out here, or the government out here has power of us, or the doctor out here has power over our well-being, that the effect has power to cause how we feel, we reverse it. And in our mind, this is what the ego does. The ego is saying, because of the training, again, remember, ego is thoughts, beliefs, ideas, get programmed in our mind. If you believe that this is what has power, this is what you think causes how you feel, causes, and you become the effect. Where in reality, you are the cause, because your desire to have a human incarnation, you and me individually with God decides, I will have a human body. I am the cause of what I'm going to experience. And I'm going to just go in there and look at it and experience it. And like going to the candy store, I like this, I don't like this. But you don't have a tantrum if, they don't have the candy you like, or you taste something and you don't like it. When you're aware, you know that you're playing with effects. And if you don't like them, go to a different candy store. But in this human incarnation, we enter into the planet and think this is what is real. And the candy store has power over me. And if they don't have what I want, then they can control my misery. I am going to be miserable because they didn't have my candy. So we've got to correct that until we realize, which is why, Phyllis, I'm so glad that you're looking to know the God of your own understanding. We have got to come and discover God in here. It's not on a cloud like we were taught. God has to be in here. We have to find it. It's the energy, the essence that animates who we are. We live inside of an 8-foot diameter bubble, Merkaba, you can call it whatever you want to call it, your light body. We live in a bubble of energy. Every one of us has a bubble of energy, and our physical vessel is inside that bubble. That's how this operates. I don't know if this shows very well here. We are bodies inside of an energy field. That energy field is what God is, but it's also what's inside of us, because we're made of that energy, of that same energy. So let me go to read the last thing here. Nothing, sentence number 8, nothing can have effects without a cause. Where do you think the government got created from? Where do you think church got created from? They cannot be the effects that cause your misery until you realize that they cannot exist if we don't agree that they exist. And this is what is happening right now. Our voice is beginning to have to wake up. We have to wake up, begin to use our 5th chakra, speak the truth of who we are as we begin to discover the truth of who we are. The government has zero power over us, but we have been conditioned. All of it is conditioning, information that comes into the head. All that information that we've been fed that has polluted our mind in a very specific way to give our power away externally. But here's the thing. This is how you claim your power. They can only have your power if you agreed that they're powerful over you, which means you've got to decide to stop playing being a victim and to acknowledge, oh, mom taught me, dad taught me, grandma taught me, everybody taught me that the government has power. So when I vote for somebody, I thought I was voting for somebody, we're deluded into thinking we vote for this person so that they represent us. But in reality, it's a system that we appear to be voting, but there is already a selected group of people that are running things, and they run things because the bulk of us have not been paying attention. Why? Because we've been distracted chasing all of these other things. And while we're distracted chasing all of these things, getting sick, getting worn out, getting tired, our bodies get polluted, our mind gets polluted, our heart gets polluted. We get so worn down, then we need the medicine and we need this and we need that. And we get stuck inside of a vicious system that appears to be the cause of our well-being, when we don't really realize it is the effect of our insanity that is causing our dysfunction, our sickness. So a lot has to be corrected in the mind, because nothing can have effect without a cause. And to confuse the two is merely to fail to understand them both. We are the cause of this because God is the cause of us. So God creates us. It is our Father, like we create our children. And we are here to then extend the kingdom, extend the goodness of God. But you can't extend the goodness of God and create godly things, loving things, if you have an ego that blocks your awareness of how to be loving and how to be good, because it distracts us and seeking outside of us, which automatically, when we're seeking, automatically we're operating from a belief that there's a deficit. I'm not whole. I'm not complete. There's something missing. There's something broken. And that begins the process of filling up our mind with ideas of all the things that we need to acquire to be okay, which puts us into the slavery system of money. And we have to understand that we participate in that slavery system because we think it is the cause of our happiness, our joy, and our freedom, and not the effect of what we have caused. And we just have caused an experience where we come in to forget that we're powerful, and our work is to wake up and remember so we can reverse the insanity. Paragraph number 11 says, it is as needful that you recognize that you made the world you see as that you recognize that you did not create yourself. This is part of the insanity. We really truly operate. This is the ego. When I say, the ego thinks I made myself, so I got to take care of me. Yes, in the beginning, mom and dad made me, but later on we have sayings. I'm a self-made woman. I'm a self-made man, because we get trained into believing part of the indoctrination. Because if you think you made yourself, then you disconnect from God even further. Not only do they put God on a cloud and they tell you you're a sinner and you can never get to that cloud, you're never going to get to heaven, and you made yourself. Lots of reasons to disconnect us from God. And the reason we've been disconnected from God so deliberately is because if we knew the power of God, the goodness of God, and we acknowledged it and activated it inside of us, this whole insanity would collapse like a house of cards, which it is collapsing for those who can see what is happening. For those who can't see what is happening, their safety net, their freedom, false sense of freedom, obviously, everything that they think matters and makes them somebody is falling apart, which means they think they're falling apart because they don't see that what is falling apart is their vision. They're seeing incorrectly because they cast power outside of them. Those of us who know that it's falling apart, what's falling apart is the insanity of our vision, that we are returning. We're moving from here. We're moving so that we are seated in the center of ourselves. So what is falling apart for us is the illusion. We are removing ideas that say that this is what we're going for. This is not what we're going for. We're going for bringing love to the world. And then all these things, those things appear because they're part of the experience, not to add on to us, but to be experienced by us. Why? Because it's the cause. We are the cause that wants that effect. I want a partner. I want a house. I want beautiful things. I want that. Why? Because this is the planet of physicality. This is where we come to have flowers and trees, and not that's not possible in other planets, but on this planet, physicality is why we come. But we can't enjoy the physicality because we have burdened it with so much heaviness. We have burdened it with enslavement to it, with destruction of it, with lack of appreciation and respect for it. And that includes people too. So we're removing all of these ideas that has power. And once it doesn't have power, we can actually enjoy it because then we meet it as an equal, as an opportunity, as an experience. So going on here, and I want to emphasize this thing. We have got to recognize that we did not create ourselves. That is so, so crucial because they are the same mistakes. These two things, the world that you see, we've made it. We made it, and we've got to be really clear about that. And we've got to acknowledge that we didn't create ourselves. God created us not to create an insane world. It created us to create a happy world. Truly a happy world. But to create a happy world, we've got to remove all of the obstacle, the beliefs, the layers between us and that happiness. So nothing created, not by your creator, has any influence over you. God did not create government. It did not. Think about it. God created people. God created each and every one of us. Our brothers and sisters that are in government are people just like us, whose minds have been so diluted into the density of the ego. They're operating from a low consciousness, telling us that they're in charge of us. So we just have people over here who have forgotten the truth of who they are. They're not listening to God. They're blocking God. That's what evil is. You totally block God, so you operate inside of it's the fallen angel. What's the fallen angel? You fall. Not from grace, although you can say you fall from grace. This is the high frequency of grace. This is a low frequency of greed. So yes, in essence, you fall. Your mind falls into deep sleep. Your mind falls under the weight of lots of BS, bullshit, lots of belief systems that block you from the awareness of the truth of who you are. So all of what appears to have power outside is nothing but a whole bunch of people operating in low frequency. And guess what? The lower the frequency, the more afraid they are. When these people, very few, when these people, and it's starting to happen, find out that the many are not afraid of them, everything flips. Everything flips because we bring the power back to where it belongs, which is inside of us. And to bring the power inside of us, we've got to acknowledge who put it there. Because if you don't acknowledge you are the power that is working, God is a power that is working through you, you still project as if out there has power over you. So lots of corrections that need to happen. And I'm going to finish this paragraph 11, and then we'll open up and have any comments or questions, and then complete the other ones, the other two. All right, so nothing created by your creator has any influence over you. Isn't this beautiful? Nothing created not by your creator has any influence over you. If God didn't create the government has no influence over you. None whatsoever. If God did not create the financial system, God did not create bondage, God did not create the medical system, God did not create vaccines and pharmaceuticals. So it has no power over you unless we give it power, because we are the cause that says that effect can work this way for me if I wanted to. And if you think what you have made can tell you what you see and feel and place your faith in its ability to do so, you are denying your creator and believing that you made yourself. For if you think the world you made has power to make you what it wills, you are confusing Son and Father, effect and source. Son and Father are here, but there's an order. Father first, Son second. So we get our power from God, not the other way around. God propels us. We are the Son that then projects what we want to experience. And if we think the source of power, the source, the effect out here has power over us, we are totally, completely confused, which is how we have all come to the place of allowing others to have power over us. We have fallen into this delusion that takes us from being equal. All of us created equal. So for thousands of years, that's what Jesus came to tell us. Love God. Love God is in here. Love your neighbor. Brothers and sisters, we're all equal, because that is how you learn to love yourself. When you know that we're all made of the same thing, and everybody just happens to be using their own aspect of God. So, this person is projecting, this person is projecting, but God is in there. God is in there. God is outside. God is in everything we see, because God is the substance of everything. So let's stop there. Let's open this up. I want to hear from you. Does this make sense? If there's anything confusing, yes, Latanya. Thank you so much.
Hello. Hi.
Hello, beautiful.
As you were talking, I had a question, and I feel like I answered it already, but you can just, I guess, check that. I had a question is, are we not being realistic when we accept those effects? We're still in this 3D world, and some of those effects, they come like clockwork every month. So do we actually have to submit to some sort of delusion?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the answer is yes and no.
Okay.
So do you remember how Jesus said about us being in the world, but not of it?
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to submit to a certain level of delusion. Otherwise, we won't be here on the planet. We would literally be with Jesus on the other side, sending information to people to us. So yes, there is a certain acceptance of the illusion, but we don't have to be deluded by it. And that would be the key thing that I would have you tweak in your language. We don't have to accept the delusion. We've been in the delusion. We are going to remove our power from the illusion, which is how we won't be deluded by it anymore. And now we will enjoy it. Now we can all be here. Now I can see, oh, Latanya, you're God really, but you're playing Latanya. So you and I can have this experience. How fun is that? Now we get to use the clock, use the calendar, go to the job, have the experiences of money, the experience of a house, but it does not have power over us when we're not deluded. In the world, but not of it means that we all recognize everybody is God. Now, the grace, the respect, living in this high frequency of love, compassion, kindness, collaboration, co-creation, that becomes our new reality in what the Course in Miracles calls a happy dream. So we stay dreaming that we're separate from God, knowing that we are God experiencing its separate expressions through each and every one of us. And we operate with reverence, basically what so many of our indigenous people have been doing and teaching us for a very long time. And we thought, they were uncivilized, but they were actually living inside of a very beautiful, natural way of being in oneness with each other and with the environment. We can do that in what we call a civilized world, where we have the houses and the things like that. But when we do it with reverence for the environment, with reverence for one another, the things that are going to eventually go away, they will go away, is anything in excess. McMansions, all these crazy things that pollute the planet, that deprive the waterways of their flow, that create so much insanity, that's going to go away. But there are so many people, as you know, because we can drive around Atlanta and we see all the McMansions, a lot of people who are attached to that because they think that that's what shows the world how special they are. And it's a definition of their, their money, their status, or whatever. So it's going to take a while to break down the destruction that we have contributed upon the planet. It's going to take a while for that to break down. But we are going to be on this planet as long as we want to. After we wake up, we can stay here for however many incarnations and enjoy the ride. But we will be still playing by the human kind of illusion, the physical illusion. So yes, that's a wonderful question, because it is a yes and no. And when we live in the paradox, I am energy having a physical experience, we will operate in a beautiful way. We won't have this density in the way. We will be projecting from pure love. And it's just going to change everything. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And in my understanding of it, one verse that came to mind was but seeking you first the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
And all of those things will be added unto you, I guess, if you want it. So that's where you can
Exactly.
say, okay,
exactly. Because as you find God inside, you find yourself so full that you don't need things to fill you up.
Right.
And when you don't need things to fill you up, you don't really have excess things. Because the hole that we have to fill up needs a lot of stuff. But once you're full, then you're playing and you're enjoying what is. Thank you for that question. Anybody else has a comment or question, please unmute yourself. And if not, we'll keep going. Is that making sense? Phyllis, is this making sense so far? You'll have to mute yourself, Phyllis. I want to make sure that makes sense. All right, Phyllis, I don't know if you hear me or not, but if you want, you can just type it in the chat if you prefer to do that. So let's go to paragraph number 12. So the son's creations are like the father's. Oh, Patricia, yes, please.
You said that God did not create governments, but yet I distinctly remember in the Bible that it says he created the jurisdictions of government, church, and family. So that presented a little confusion for me.
So if the way that I would interpret that, and I am not a Bible scholar by any means, that within inside of us, when we are all connected to God, when we are all in alignment and understand the goodness, the love of God, we will be able to govern ourselves accordingly. We will be able to come together in communities to create a governance, because it's a good thing to have some people in charge of the waterways and some people in charge of, the keeping the animals away, the farm animals on this side and the tigers and whatever away. The management of the monies that we pull together, government is supposed to be an extension of people connected to their God essence, serving one another. And in terms of the family, it is a natural thing for us to come together as families and procreate. There's just a natural caring and taking care of, and one generation to the next to the next. So those things that are written in the Bible, to me, make perfect sense when God is moving through us and we are not imposing the idea that the governor knows better than me what I should do, or that a church should be the one who decides that my union with the beloved is real versus not real, or that a judge with a signature validates my marriage or gets rid of it. So we have given a lot of power externally to things that God gave us power to experience internally. And when we align with him internally, we actually operate in collaboration naturally. So these systems are actually man-made systems that have imposed middle people that get in the way, that create all kinds of division between us. And if you think about it, they're all money makers. You got to go to the judge to get married. And then you've got to pay the church. You got to pay the wedding planner. Then that doesn't work out. You got to pay the attorney to get divorced. You got to pay all these extra expenses. If you think about everything that the ego has created, it has greed attached to it because it's devoid of grace. All that governance exists inside of us in a natural way. And we've got to come back and get comfortable with how powerful we are, how smart we are. Most of us have been indoctrinated into believing, we're not management potential, but we are. If we wake up, we become the managers of our own reality, and none of us would do the things to each other that we do under the illusion of separation. That is, thank you, Disney World, for confusing all of us with all these silly Disney movies.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. Yes, Vern.
Yeah, this is an interesting area. I am also not a Bible scholar, but I have read it several times, many different versions of it, in a couple of different languages. And I believe what you're referring to, Patricia, is it comes from the Old Testament, basically where it describes so many different facets of how things were created and what is God's and what's not God's. But for me, what's helped me quite a bit, and this has been validated by a Rebbe, which is a rabbi's rabbi, and an old priest that taught me. It's very tricky when you read the Bible with all the translations that I went through. But the one thing that was pointed out to me was, especially that phrase, it talks about the priestcraft were involved in the process of publishing or writing the Bible. And what better way to ensure their power and their so-called deserved respect than to put them in it with the understanding that we're created by God. It's our job to decide what's right and what's wrong, and you're supposed to respect us. And so I mean, I've dealt with many people with this particular area over the years. And so what's helped me basically is that anything that I read now, I don't care if it's the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, whatever, everything that I read now, even the Course in Miracles, I have to realize that this has been heavily influenced, first of all, by Helen, in a sense, by her vocabulary and her understanding. Just like any channel will tell you that the words that they use are many times it goes through their system. In other words, what they're aware of. And they share using their words and their terminology and attempt to share something that was shared with them. And for me, it's very clear that that is more of a control factor from a desire to influence than it is from being authentic. And that's what's helped me get clear on it for myself. And so I would ask to possibly consider that it is but the key, I believe, and I believe you'd find it in the Course in some way, different presentation. But even what the Course says, you've got to work with. You've got to go within yourself, and you've got to feel if this is right for you or not. That you have the opportunity of understanding something. So I would just share that that's my current hallucination, and I reserve the right to change that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yes, Christo.
Also on this subject, I'm also reminded about what is said, as above, so below. And, one can interpret that in many ways. And in this context, I see it that we see the structure can see heaven on earth if we apply our consciousness to, in a divine way, be able to see the structures of heaven displaying itself to ourselves. And in terms of structures of functioning, that too can be demonstrated where if governments set up structures that are not in alignment with the divine nature that shows itself, and a divine person would be able to see how they need to operate through that if they are connected to their divine nature. So that's something which I like to constantly remind myself about, is as above, so below, and vice versa.
Thank you so much for that. That is beautiful. And to add to that, something to use just as a way to test things is I kind of have two things that I focus on. And one, is it eternal? Because everything that is God is eternal. And is it repetitive? God does not repeat. God does not repeat fingerprints. So if it's repetitive and it's temporary, human egos are involved. If it's eternal and unique, then you know it's a work of God versus a work of man. So anyway, so just throw that in there. All right, so let's get these last two paragraphs in here because they just tie all of this together. So paragraph number 12, the Son's creations are like his Father's, yet in creating them, the Son does not delude himself that he is independent of his source. So we just have to acknowledge that, you know, we've received this power from God. We've got to put things in right order. I didn't make myself. God made me. And when I decide that I am going to align with God's will, that's when life becomes fun and easy, because God wills for the children, its children, to have a happy life. And every one of us can have a million examples that when we follow intuition, it's not something that came out of our head that we plotted, we planned, but when we follow intuition, it moves us gracefully. There is just a beautiful way that synchronicity operates, and it's the path of least resistance. It flows and things work out and like by magic, but it's really miracles happening because we have shifted our perception from thinking we are the ones who have to make it happen to flowing with God and be on, you know, to ride the wave of enjoyment that we truly incarnated to be able to have if we wake up. So his union with it, our union with God, with our source, with it is the source of his creating. We create because we are in union with God. When we are not consciously in union with God, we still create. We absolutely create, but we are creating the hard way. We're pushing a boulder up the hill because we are making it happen as opposed to flowing with it. Oh, enjoy your lunch, Lorelei, with your son. That's so wonderful, who's in town from Denver. Bye-bye, sweetie. So apart from this, he has no power to create. And what he makes is meaningless. If we do not acknowledge that we are creating with God, everything that we make is meaningless. And this is what the Course wants us to understand about meaninglessness. The governments that we give power to really ultimately is meaningless. When we stop believing in it, they crumble like our ego. They have no power. It ultimately has no power. So when we have somebody who sits on a chair thinking that they are this big king or queen or head of the house or, you know, whatever, Madam Secretary, all these fancy titles that we give people, you know, one of these days, those titles are going to go away because they serve to separate and segregate people into hierarchy. But when you're all the same, you know, we can use a name and call, you know, hey, Nancy, or hey, Bob, or hey, Hitler. We don't need to say hi, Hitler, or Madam Pelosi, or whatever. We don't have to use titles like that. All of that is stuff that the ego has made up. They're really meaningless. We give them meaning, but they're meaningless because God doesn't see them as necessary. They just see them as games that we are playing and are caught up inside of a structure of a game. And inside of that game, when we give power to these things and we give them meaning, they then trap us into having to follow them, because if we don't follow them, then we have the consequences of not following these meaningless rules. Remember when you were little, how many of you, raise your hand, please. How many of you played pretend and you dressed up? So, and you pretended to be the princess or the prince or the whatever. Yes. All right. So we pretended to be something. And when I pretended to be the teacher, my sisters were my students. They had to obey me. If they didn't obey me, guess what I had? I had a little ruler and I would whack them. We had permission to play all out because that's what the nuns did to us. So I had permission to do that to them, but it was totally meaningless. Once we stopped pretending that I was the teacher and they were the students, the game was over. We were all little sisters, 4 little girls running around having, equal fun. But when we enter the game of the game that we give meaning of hierarchy, to God, it is totally meaningless and only holds power while we are in agreement with the game. And we need to understand that. There is nothing, there are no titles, no kings, no queens, no dukes, no dictators that have power over us, except for the power that we give them while we want to pretend they have power over us. And this is a thing that those who are in those positions of power are most afraid of. Because if you think about it, their numbers are very small. One president for a country of 300 million people. Do you know how scary it is to lose power over 300 million people? That possibly 300 million people can turn on me? Or the king of France, or the prime minister of France, or wherever, the dictator of Venezuela? You know how scared these people are? They're more scared of us than we should be of them. But we are more scared of them because they've deluded us into believing that they're in the hierarchy, they're above us and we are below. Brainwashing, ego stuff. Those are the layers that we have to correct. Because if God made us all equal, then that means we are all equal. We cannot be otherwise. So this part that, let me read the last sentence number 4 in paragraph 12. So apart from this union with God, we have no power to create. And what he makes is meaningless. It changes nothing in creation, depends entirely upon the madness of its maker, and cannot serve to justify the madness. Just because in our insanity we have created solitary confinements to hurt people, we imprison people, we take women and children and put them into human slavery. Just because we insanely create that does not mean that that creation has power over us. It just means that we need to clean up our insanity and begin to create sanely. So, and the fact that we are insane doesn't justify staying insane. The fact that we have wars that don't end, that we have human trafficking that doesn't end, that we have drug trafficking that doesn't end. Just because it happens doesn't mean we should justify accepting that. But that will end when we begin to take our power away from the powers that be. Because think about it. If the powers that be spend just as much time cleaning up our streets and cleaning up the drug business and the illegal drug business, even the legal drug business is an insanity nowadays, and the human trafficking, if they spent as much time going door to door to find children than door to door to jab people who don't need a jab, we would really have a much better form of governance. We would have a governance that would be working for the people instead of a governance that is working for its own agenda. Because think about I'm preaching to the choir here. The insanity of forcing people who are fine to take something that is not necessary when there is already medication, that is cuckoo, absolutely insane. But we allow that because we're really not quite ready to upset the apple cart. We're not quite ready to get totally banned from YouTube, or we're not quite ready to lose our privileges. We're not quite ready to sacrifice the things that we hold dear because we haven't come into the seat of our soul and found the essence of God inside of ourselves. Because when we come to the essence of God inside of ourselves, we will not put up with this insanity. Absolutely would not put up with it, because it's madness. It is madness. It says, it cannot serve to justify the madness. Sentence number 6, your brother thinks that he made the world with you. Biden thinks that he made this world with me, that he is president and that I am the one who is the subject to this. You guys think that we are here operating, creating this world together, when we are asleep, that we are the ones who are making this world what it is, that we have power over this stuff. but let me keep reading here. Thus, we deny creation when we think that we made this world. With you, he thinks the world he made him, thus he denies he made it. We've got to get really clear. We made a mess of this world. Yes, we've made the pollution. We've made all of these things that are not good for our planet. And our planet, frankly, is getting sick and tired of it. And she's doing her thing. She is shaking off the insanity, crying the tears of floods, crying the tears of the melting of ice caps, shaking things off through earthquakes, blowing off what does not serve her through hurricanes. All of that, some of it is her naturally, some of it is man-made, but all of it is going to lead to the same place, a mass awakening of humanity, when we all reach the place that we have said enough is enough. And we will say enough is enough when we come back to know God inside of us and remember that God created us to love one another. And when we are no longer tolerating the forcing people to do things that they don't want to do, the insanity of allowing anybody to go hungry, the craziness of polluting this planet, when we all come out of our comfy little suburban houses and say enough is enough, we are going to be a mighty, mighty force. Because when we say enough is enough, is because we will have finally decided, God, what would you have me do? God, please show me the way. And the mind that is humbles itself enough to ask God, what would you have me do, is a mighty mind indeed, because it is supported with the power of God to create, to affect change, to affect solutions to this planet. And all of that is so needed right now. But it all starts, like the Course in Miracles says, with a shift in perception. We've got to give ourselves a miracle of shifting our mind, shifting from fear into love, shifting and lifting into a higher frequency by studying what is true, what is not. And here it goes on to say, paragraph 13, yet the truth is you and your brother were both created by a loving Father who created you together and as one. See what proves otherwise. Oh, look, I'm separate from them. They're Chinese and I'm not Chinese, I'm American. They're Black and I'm white. That means that we can't be from the same Father. We've got to move beyond that insanity and move to where we find what is the same about all of us. And we will find that loving Father that created us otherwise. So if we see what proves otherwise, focus on those differences, and we deny our whole reality. But grant that everything that seems to stand between you and your brother, keeping you from each other and separate from your Father, you made in secret, and the instant of release has come to you. When we acknowledge the secrets, A Course in Miracles spends a lot of time in talking about the ego, talks about the secrets. The ego operates in secrets. Everything that we can't tell another is a secret that the ego uses. Where do you think corruption comes? Do you think corruption happens because the government gives us a list of all of the things it does that are corrupt? Corruption happens because of all the things that are kept in secret. Hate among brothers and sisters happens because of all of the things that are kept in secret. Those lies that are told to us, why we should be hateful of our brothers and sisters, some of it gets out there. Most of it is kept in secret. Look at the relationships that we have with one another. Look at how many secrets we keep from one another. When we discard relationships, I don't want to be with you anymore, it's because secretly we talking bad about that person. We don't uphold who they are as God created them. We don't value them as God created them. But in secret, we're judging them, we're blaming them, we're shaming them. All of these things that we keep in secret are the very things that create the solidity of the layers that we have built between us and the other. These are the secrets that we keep from that one, the secrets that we keep from that one. And if we were to really tell the truth, not only would a lot of healing happen, but we would feel a lot of emotions. We would feel shame. We would feel embarrassment. We would feel anger, resentment, What? You thought that about me? Yeah, that's why I'm not with you anymore, because I thought these horrible things about you. But if we got really honest about that, we would find all of those horrible things that we think of others are also horrible things we think about ourselves. And pulling them out of us is what allows us to empty our consciousness of dense thoughts that are blocks to the awareness of the presence of the God self in all of us. And that is a lot of what's coming to the surface. All of the secrets that humanity has kept. You know, the reason we have so much corruption, so much corruption at every level, in the home, we have corruption in the church, in the communities, in the cities, in the counties, in the countries, you know, in the states, in the world, is because the ego tells us to hold secrets from one another. And it requires an incredible amount of honesty. And what is happening is the secrets that have caused the deceptions are coming to the surface. And the secrets are all about perpetuating two things that the ego loves: power and money. That's why we're going to talk about the Bible. Let's go back to the Old Testament. You cannot worship two masters. You will worship God or you will worship money. Even back then, it was very clear. We didn't learn thousands of years ago. Jesus was a big proponent of speaking up against what the government was doing, of saying you got too many laws. You only need 2 laws. Love God, love your neighbor. Because if you love God and you love your neighbor, you love yourself. So you don't need a 3rd law to tell you to love yourself. It's an automatic. So all those laws that the Jews had, I don't know, 600 some odd laws, those were ego-made laws, so many of them, to hide, to you know, all the laws that get passed, this new bill that they're passing with all of the things. If we were to take that apart, the trillions of dollars that they're pledging, if we were to take that apart and look at the secrets inside of that, what companies are getting these monies, and which politicians' children or cousins or neighbors or spouses are on those firms, and are they actually doing what they said that they're doing, or are these fronts for funneling money? I mean, there are so many freaking secrets, but we're not going to be able to see them until we get clear that we need transparency, because we are all equal. Nobody can have more power than us. We will govern ourselves from inside in a way that makes sense. So the rest of this says, let me read this again. So, but grant, sentence number 3, but grant that everything that seems to stand between you and your Father, you made in secret, and the instant of release has come to you. Stop the secrets and you release yourself. All of its effects are gone because its source has been uncovered. The ego, the liar. And you know, the part of us that lies is the insecure part of ourselves. Everybody who's afraid is operating from an insecure sense of self. And we have to face that so that we can correct that really, truly who we are is powerful beyond measure. It is its seeming independence of its source that keeps you prisoner. We think we live out here on the edge with where all these things are, and that we're independent from God. God is somehow separate from us. We've got to correct that. God and you and the Father are one. I and the Father are one. Jesus told us that. We believe Jesus so much, let's do what Jesus said for us to do and accept the truth. So that seeming independence from God keeps us trapped into giving our power away to others and let them become our prisoners or our jailers. And we become prisoners to systems that have no key. They're not solid. It's just a shift in perception. So this is the same mistake as thinking that you are independent of the source by which you were created and have never left. We've never left God. God's never left us, but we believe we are apart from God. We believe that we're not as powerful as God because we got trained into that belief by those who needed us compliant. We have to wake up. We have to wake up. In our sovereignty, we claim our recognition that we are the cause. And if we want a happy dream, if we want a world that works for all of us, we got to come back here and demand it because we know it's what we want. And when we are clear that we want For our brothers and sisters, the same thing, because we know we are all one. We won't need to have Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, Green Lives Matter. That goes away. What matters is life, liberty, each one free to pursue what makes them happy. And when we all stand together, wanting everybody's life to matter, upholding the sanctity of life, then we cannot be pitted into different groups and be put on opposite sides that battle each other. Do you know how much money is spent in keeping opposition going? They spend a lot of money to keep us taking sides, and then we funnel money to those separate sides that keep. It's insanity. If you pull apart the curtain, there's a whole bunch of silly little people behind the curtain pretending that they're really scary, and they're not. They're more frightened than any one of us could possibly ever be, because they have what they believe is the most to lose, which is power and money. We have, when we begin to wake up, what is the most to gain, which is the recognition that we create our own reality, come back in here into our sovereignty, and from our sovereign place, then co-create a world that works for all of us. The world is about to split. And by that, I mean, we are not, those who want independence, sovereignty, are not going to tolerate being told what to do. So we are on the verge of a big shift coming. I am going to recommend ground yourself with God, align with God, find the peace of God inside of you so that you can move through the discomfort. Those who are afraid, who need the government to protect them, and the government who is so afraid, who needs the people to be afraid of them and needs to pretend that they're protecting them. Those groups have big numbers. Little bitty in the government, a lot in people who still need the government to take care of them. Massive numbers, but the numbers of those of us who are not playing this game anymore, who are tired of giving up our power, our numbers are growing, mighty in numbers. The media here doesn't put it on the news, but around the world, those like you and like me are standing up. They're marching. They're not tolerating. They're pushing back. We're going to have to get to the place that we have to do the same thing. Do it with peace in your heart. Do it because you know you're doing it for the greater good of all. We're doing it for our kids, for our grandkids. And we're doing it because it's going to create the planet we are going to incarnate in. That's what's amazing. At whatever level of consciousness we're at, we're going to come back and incarnate at that level of consciousness. Take yourself up a little bit more and come in more clear. Unless you've reached total enlightenment, that then you don't need to come back. The wheel of karma is playing itself out, and we will come back at the next higher level until we reach the complete place where incarnation is not necessary. But until then, we're playing the game. And guess why we're going to keep playing the game? Because we know the planet needs love and light. We're going to keep bringing in the love and light. And the numbers of those of us increasing to bring in more love and light is massive. The children are coming in with more love and light. And they're coming in and they need conscious parents who help them remember their love and their light, who teach them to stay back here and put as few barriers in front of them so that they can, like Latanya was asking, be in the world but not of it. They're going to come in and play the game but not get lost in it, which is why so many parents are pulling their kids out of school and homeschooling. So many people are growing their own foods, not relying on GMO produced foods. So many people are taking better care of their bodies, aligning through yoga, meditation, breath work, finding the center in their body so they can activate the well-being that is already there. We're moving little by little, pulling our power back and remembering God created us and where is God inside of us. So returning our inner selves to being the holy temple that it really needs to be, where we honor the creative source of all that is, so that we can, from that place, united in alignment with God, create a happy dream. We really are happy dream creators. To create that, we need to come back and claim that power. That's where our sovereignty will take us if we choose to go on that ride. That's all I've got for you now. So open it up. Any thoughts, comments, please share. Thank you so much for being with us. I know a few of you had to leave. Of course, Phyllis, thank you for joining us. But let's open up. Any nuggets that you received today? Anybody here? Unmute yourselves. No shy people here.
Hi, Laina. I always get nuggets from you. I just go through, I think I went through 4 journals, but it just is making so much more complete sense to me as you explain the hierarchy. And not to get off topic or anything, but I had watched Frank's speech last night, and I saw a little bit of, I was watching with my husband, and I saw a little bit of Soros, the millionaire who controls everything, billionaire.
Oh, yeah.
And I just saw a little snippet, and I've never seen this before, of where an interviewer asked him if he believed in God, and he said no. And it just hit me that he is totally blocking God out. So he's the 1% of the 1% of the 1% that operates out of greed and ego. And so I'm learning so much more about the world around me as I'm applying the Course in Miracles. So thank you so much for every Wednesday. I love it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And, and Lisa, and what George Soros needs more than anything is compassion, because that is one hurting little guy. And don't see him as a big billionaire with so much power. He is a deluded, scared little man who lost his parents in the Holocaust and has not clearly gotten over that, to the point that he completely has taken his pain and inflict pain upon the world, which is, and you'll learn that in the ego class, the ego does the same or the opposite to others. If we were abused, we will become an abuser. If we were abused, we will become a perpetual victim. We do one or the other. And he went on to becoming an abuser when you had that much money and that much power. But he came to play that role for us. He's playing that role. So God wanted to experience life through George Soros, and is waiting patiently inside of George, as God has waited patiently inside of us, for us to mirror back the light, for George to see itself in the mirror and go, what? You see something redeeming in me? As wicked as I've been trying to be super wicked because I've got so much pain in me. And you are compassionate and forgiving me. That is what George needs more than anything. Whether we have the opportunity to do it in person or not doesn't matter. From here, Course in Miracles tells us all minds are one. We are all sharing the exact same substance. You put love in that substance deliberately, it has a ripple effect. So hold George in our thoughts. Let's wish that man soften his heart by deliberately sending love and saying, George, we're done with this game. We're not afraid of you, Georgie Porgy.
Amen.
So thank you for that, Lisa. He's just pretending, like the rest of us when we're unconscious, pretending that we're something other than what we're not. All right, so just unmute yourselves and let's say goodbye to one another. Say goodbye and wish everybody a wonderful day.
Goodbye. Have a wonderful day.
Bye. Everybody have a great day.
Thanks,
Thank you
Laina.
for being here. Bye-bye.
Thank
See
you.
you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye.